All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA props video. We're going to be breaking down the 2-game slate here on Tuesday for the playing games. Let's go ahead and get into it. So starting with the first game, we got Atlanta versus Orlando. This is a 5-point spread in favor of Orlando winning, and it's also a pretty low-scoring game for Atlanta, with the game total being at about 216.5 for the over and under. So naturally speaking, we probably are trying to attack a little bit more of the unders for Atlanta naturally, which are some of the better prop bets that are popping up for them as well, which is something that I would like to see and something that I do like to see. In terms of injuries, Clint Capella is going to sit again in this game here as well. And I say again because he has been out for quite some time. And so with that, we are expecting Onyeka Okongwu to get a lot of run. And if you look at his per 36 production with Clint Capella off the court, he does average 17.3 points, 11.6 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. Okay, actually averages a block and a steal per 36 as well, and about 41 fantasy points per 36. The biggest question that I have is, can we project him to get 40 minutes like he did against Orlando not too long ago? And in that game, he did really go off in that game. If we look at some of the other game logs against Orlando earlier on in the season, did decently well against them point per minute wise. And so if he is someone that does get closer to like 37, 36 minutes, not leaving the court with it being, a playoff game, if you will. I'm not a big fan of the playing games, guys. I think they're stupid. I think they distract from the regular season. It kind of makes the regular season less relevant. And I don't like that. Same thing with the in-season tournament. Now, I'm not going to bash on it. I guess more basketball is never a bad thing, but still, I wish the playoffs were mattered a little bit more, making the playoffs mattered more. But that's not really here nor there. Looking at the projections for Onyeka here, guys, we are projecting him to get 32 minutes in this game. And so, yes, again, if he does get more than that, yeah, he's probably going to get the over. And so the question is whether or not you believe he is going to get more or less minutes than what he's projected to get. I would assume that the average Vegas line that we're pulling in here, where it has him at about 31.5, whereas the PrizePicks line is at 35, they're probably factoring that in there a little bit. As always, I would love to see what the underdog line is for this as well, which we'll probably get on Tuesday. I'm recording this video on Monday night, just as an FYI. DVP projection as well. Everything basically tells us that he should be hitting the under for the most part, but if you do bump up his minutes a little bit, 5 minutes, then he might be able to get his over. The VPM is the Vegas per minute line, and so if you adjust his minutes for his projected minutes compared to his average minutes with the Vegas line, he could get the over there. So interesting line there. If you guys don't want to bet that, I get that, but that is really the best bet that we have on the board for the day and also for this game. So it's up to you guys whether or not you guys think that matchup with Orlando in the previous one was a sign of things to come or not. Now, from there, we are getting some okay bets, 53% likelihood with a couple of these three. I don't particularly need to go out of my way to target the field goal made prop bets if they are under 53% likelihood or better to hit. Obviously, we want to be attacking those lines that have an over 54% likelihood or better to hit. And then because we're really not getting any other good bets on paper, I'm just going to call out some players that do have good hit rates based off of some of the lines that we are getting here for Atlanta. So Vit Krejci is actually a decent one, guys. At his over 6.5 points and rebounds, he has about a 78% hit rate on the season and actually an 80% hit rate against Orlando. Now, the biggest question is how many minutes is he going to get, and will he be able to take advantage of probably the limited minutes with that. It's up to you guys to decide. Another interesting one would be Georges Niang to get over his 3-pointers made of 1.5. He also has a pretty good season hit rate on this one, about 76% of the time, and then against Orlando, still 71% of the time. So decent lines there for those two players. Again, for him to get over 1.5 3-pointers made. Now, when we look at those bets, it is worth calling out that if you guys are betting on that one for Vit Krejci, he is expected to see a reduction in his minutes here in the playoffs. So it's up to you guys whether or not you like that. I think it's a better sportsbook bet. We're actually being told to bet the under slightly. It's basically a 50-50 split though. And then it's basically going to be the same thing for Georges there as well. Projected minutes and average minutes are about the same, but in terms of his likelihood to hit via the Vegas odds that we're getting, basically a 50-50 split. We look at some of the Vegas data that's being pulled in, basically all the same lines here, kind of telling us basically the same stuff. Bovada is a little bit higher at minus 125 compared to the under at minus 105. So maybe slightly favoring the over a little bit more there. But, two decent spots there for Atlanta other than the Onyeka under fantasy score that we would be targeting on PrizePicks. All right, so now we go ahead and jump into the Orlando side of this game. And what we're going to notice is we're getting some okay spots here, especially like plus EV bets that kind of correlate. So Anthony Black for under his fantasy score is a bet that's popping up. You could also bet on his under field goals made of 3.5, where the data is heavily suggesting that he's going to get the under. Now, if we look at the game log, Anthony Black in the last game there against Atlanta did get the under, only 15 points in that game. Minutes were a little bit lower in that game, though, only 21 minutes in that game. He is projected to get 27 minutes, so that could end up being the difference for him. Thus far this season, though, in the 3 games against Atlanta, he has gotten the over only once thus far. He actually got a low amount of minutes in that game, which is interesting there. Now, on the season, it is worth calling out that he has gotten the over about 57% of the time, which is right in line with what he's been doing recently as well. Over his last 10 games, he's gotten the over 60% of the time, but if you expand that to his last 20 games, which isn't necessarily fair because Orlando has been banged up, which has thrust a player like Anthony Black into more minutes, so it's not exactly a like one-for-one swap, but 45% of the time over the last 20 games. Now, what's interesting, I would say, is that if we just look at the lines that we're getting for him on PrizePicks right now, and you like do the calculations, they wouldn't add up to the 23.5 fantasy score that they're laying out there. Now, partially that's due to a lot of goblin bets and whatnot here on the board, but if you just round up for them, 2 assists, that's 3 points. 2 rebounds, that's about 5.4 points. And then you tack on that to the 8.3 points or 8.5 points. Sorry, this keeps bouncing on me right now as you guys are watching. So it's you could round up to 2.5 rebounds, okay, or 3 rebounds from 2.5. And apologies, it keeps bouncing on me. But anyways, the point is, if you add those up, if you give him a block, if you give him a steal, he only gets to around 21.1 fantasy points just based off of their projections, and that's not factoring in a potential turnover. Now, I did mention that in his last game against Atlanta, he got in the under. Should call out that he did play against Atlanta in the closing game of the season. Don't really count that, honestly, okay? Like, final game of the season, a bunch of backups are playing. You look at all the other guards. They played limited minutes. Cole Anthony, Corey Joseph, Franz Wagner didn't play in that game. Banchero didn't play in that game as well. And so, yeah, of course, Black was going to pick up some work there and usage in that game, and he played well. Don't want to take that away from him, but we're not really accounting into that game too much, or really any of the games from the last game of the year. And again, another bet that's somewhat popping up in there would be Anthony Black to get under 4.5 field goals made. So it's really up to you guys, whichever one you guys want to go with. Now, the issue that we do draw is that it is a pretty good matchup for a lot of the Orlando players. Like Franz Wagner is someone that I do expect to have a good game here as well. The issue is a lot of the sportsbooks are kind of telling us that the PrizePicks lines are all a little bit too high for the most part, especially the top ones that we'd be going out of our way to target. So there is a interesting balancing act there. Corey Joseph to get over 8.5 points and rebounds, I don't hate, but it's also not one particularly that I need to go out of my way to target, just because I don't think we can really count on the minutes to be there. Okay, his minutes have been a little bit all over the place, only projected to get around 12 minutes, so I don't exactly like that. I'm going to be sticking to players that we can kind of predict more easily. Now, I do want to talk about some hit rates for some players again, because we're getting a limited board in terms of like how many good bets we can go out of our way to target. It is only a 2-game slate. I think that makes sense for most people. And if you look at his hit rate, it is one of the worst. Only gets the over about 17% of the time, 35 on the season, but over the last 20, only 10% of the time. Now, it is pretty darn close. And again, looking at being the playoffs, you would expect him to get a little bit more additional run in this game, but worth calling out against Atlanta as well. Only 15% of the time. Now, he did get the over slightly against Atlanta in that game on the 8th. So worth calling that out, but very interesting there. Let me go ahead and take a peek at Wendell Carter as well. We are getting some, I would say, interesting spots with him. Really for his points and rebounds. Again, if you look at kind of his game log, it's going to stand out to you already. His hit rate on the season is only about 34% of the time. Over his last 20 games, 25% of the time. And against Atlanta, actually 64% of the time. Okay, so does get the over a decent amount. And again, if you don't really count this game, maybe that goes up a little bit there as well. So not a lock and load bet, but again, just calling that out because, well, it's a 2-game slate. We're getting limited good bets, and so worth calling that out to you guys. And one interesting thing here about the Wagner line is that the average sportsbook line is slightly favored than the over there as well. Not much. It is basically a 50-50 split, but he does draw that good matchup, and we're in the green a lot. Again, the game log not so pretty for him recently, but you are expecting him to get a little bit more run in this game. So very interesting. Probably just want to stay away from, but I did want to call that out to you guys. All right, so now we go ahead and get into the next game, which is going to be the Golden State Warriors versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, the Grizzlies are 7.5-point dogs in this game, and typically speaking, I would start to worry about a blowout at about 7.5 points. But again, given that it's not a regular season game, so I don't really care about a blowout in terms of like players not getting as much minutes. Maybe if it was like a 7-game series, we'd worry about that. Now, this game is going to be a little bit higher of a point total at about 229 on average, so pretty decently high scoring. Now, the top prop bet that we have pulled up is going to be Kennard to get under his fantasy score. And I will say, I find this one a little bit interesting that he is popping up this much for the under. I wouldn't like, to me, it's not like a lock and load. DVP rank, we can look at that as about 26th matchup right there. So don't exactly love that. Minutes, 21 minutes. If he gets 21 minutes, he could easily get there. You know, we look at his game log against Golden State, not the prettiest, okay, but minutes 12 in that game. So we can kind of write that off. So basically a 50-50 split there then instead. And 11 is just such a low fantasy score line that I just don't want to mess with that too much. I will get exposure to that. It probably will be on the bet of the day, but I'm probably not going to get that much action in on that because that's hitting 2-3 balls, getting a steal, and then getting a rebound or a block or whatever. Like, there's not that much that goes into it. You know, if he just gets hot for a few shots, he's going to get that over. So it is a tight line, especially with some of that is projected at 21 minutes. And then from there, guys, it is pretty darn limited again for a lot of the Memphis prop bets. We're really not getting any good edges. The next best one, 52% for Scottie Pippen Jr. to get under 7 rebounds and assists. Not exactly a bet we want to go out of our way to target. Desmond Bane to get over 5.5 rebounds, 52.7%. Now, it is worth calling out that if you guys are someone that does bet on some other sites, we are getting some interesting line differences here. So like on DraftKings, plus 105 for his under is certainly interesting there. You look at a site like Fliff, they have the under at about minus 110, okay, which is a pretty sizable difference. Now we look at the game log, we see a little bit streaky mixed in there. Overall, kind of, oh well, we probably aren't betting this one too much. Now, an interesting line that we are getting, again, just kind of looking at the hit rates, would be Scottie Pippen Jr. to get over his points here of 10. We see the game log. It is a great game log. Over the last 20 games, it's gotten the over 20% of the time. This season, only 54% of the time. So we are seeing that recently he has, gotten a little bit more run. And because of that, he has been able to get the over a little bit more. The concern would be the over against the Golden State Warriors, where he only averages about 40%. So a little bit kind of matchup dependent here. I don't know if we exactly want to go in on that too much, but I did want to call that out to you guys. Now, Ja Morant is also an interesting one here with his field goals attempted. I'm probably not going to get into this one too much, but again, just calling out some of the hit rates that we have seen. 70% hit rate against the Golden State Warriors, which is definitely interesting. On the season, only 36% hit rate, but over the last 20 games, 65%. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. Again, given kind of the dynamics of the game, you would expect him to maybe even get a little bit more run in this game and maybe force it a little bit more in this game as well, shot attempts wise. So I could see some people wanting to get there, so worth calling out. So now we go ahead and get into the Golden State Warriors, and we do have pods as a pretty good over fantasy score bet, which is interesting here, guys. So 53.8% edge, so typically not one we'd be going out of our way to target. It is a decent matchup for him with about the 10th best matchup you could ask for. He is someone that has been getting additional run, projected to get 31 minutes in this game. Now, what we're going to notice here is that the DVP projection likes the over at about 34.5. The projection data, however, only about 28, so that's slightly concerning. But the average sportsbook line would have him closer to about 34. We do see the game log. It has been basically hit or miss, which I think I'm kind of okay with. Now, over the past 20 games, has gotten the over about 40% of the time. So it does seem that Vegas is really counting for, the game to be a decently high scoring game, and that's why it's liking the over for him. And then from there, I don't want to go too crazy with anything too much here with the Golden State Warriors. The next best one would be Kevon Looney to get under his points, rebounds, and assists here of 53.5, which is a low line. Okay, we are projecting him to only get 11 minutes, which if he does get that, obviously it's going to be tougher for him to get that over. But he's also someone that can do a lot of damage in limited run. Now, I don't think we should expect him to get more run against Memphis, but playoff basketball is a little bit different. It's fine, though. I really don't think I would talk anyone out of this one if they're getting to this one. And so another bet that I want to call is going to be with Moses Moody. And that's looking at Moses Moody to get under his fantasy score at 21.5. Now, we're not getting enough data coming in on him just yet. Average sportsbook line, probably missing a turnover line or steal line or block line. One of those two is typically why. But if you look at it, guys, he does have a very low hit rate on the season and against Memphis. Only 9% hit rate against Memphis, 28% on the season. Over his last 20 games, only 30%. It is worth calling out that even in the last game against Memphis, where he had a lot of run in that game, 36, he only had 18.5 DraftKings points, which is a little bit different in scoring, but that just kind of shows you that even in that game where he did get additional run, wasn't able to get the over. So interesting line there with Moody. I think we could probably be favoring the under, but again, I don't want to go too crazy with the hit rates there. It is just worth calling out. I know people like to use that to place bets, so want you guys to be able to put your best foot forward. Now, before we go ahead and get to the 9 to 5 bet of the day, I do want to call out just a quick update that I made to the 9 to 5 website. So obviously I was just showing you guys the NBA cheat sheet there. Included in a 9 to 5 membership would be access to the PrizePicks Underdog cheat sheets there that you guys see as well. But I have also included the props mobile cheat sheet as well, which is currently just for PrizePicks, working on getting Underdog listed in there as well. But what you could do, guys, is pull it up on your phone. It's going to be much more easy to navigate there. And you guys get all the same data highlighted in there. Just a quick snapshot of really why that bet is going to be a good bet or not a good bet. Just another resource for people to use if they are a 9 to 5 member. And so getting into the 9 to 5 bet of the day here, guys, just a simple 4-slip bet here for the NBA games, chasing those fantasy score lines that we have. Basically all unders except for one over bet here, guys. So 4-slip bet. Obviously, probably want to attach, some of the other bets that we're getting. We're getting some, esports bets that are popping up in there for League of Legends. Could attach that to make it a 5-slip bet or a 6-slip bet. Typically speaking, that's what we want to be doing anyways. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck with all your bets for the NBA play game and for the rest of the playoffs as well. Thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel as well. Thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.